Hi, Chris Newman. Today's topic is Te Tiriti and hierarchical society. I'm indebted to this book, Pākehā Slaves, Maori Masters, because it has such a comprehensive understanding of Maori tribal hierarchical society, in which the slave has the lowest status. So one thing that Bentley makes clear through all his scholarship, apart from the fact that the Maori communities and organisation was very sophisticated and very advanced in within its own limits, and extremely well developed and responsive and able to, intellectually and technically respond to the opportunities. Marvellous. He really does emphasise the hierarchical nature of it. And he says that whenever a chief met a Pākehā, he would interview him very closely to understand the Pākehā's status within European society. So they quickly figured out where people fitted into society, which is why the chiefs were so honoured when Queen Victoria sent Captain Hobson to treat with them, to communicate with them and to negotiate a treaty, because they recognised that Captain Hobson's status from Queen Victoria was very high status indeed. He was not an average person at all. He had conducted a very notable military navy campaigns in the Caribbean. He was an accomplished warrior, he was an accomplished sea captain, he was a man of letters, he was honourable. Everything about him gave a sense to the rangatira, to the chiefs, that they were dealing with a very high quality fellow. And accordingly, they had a hierarchy. In Maori society, at the top was the rangatira or the chiefs, and then the tohunga or the spiritual masters or witch doctors or whatever you call them, then the warriors and the regular folk, and then the slaves. Now, of course, there are other subdivisions, but this will work. Now, over here at the time on February 1840, at the time of the treaty, we have Captain Hobson, we have Clendon, who had, James Clendon had a US consulate kind of status, very high. Then we had the Williams, Reverend Williams and his son, the missionaries. They also had high status. And James Busby, even though he had no real power, he still had status because he had recognition from the British Crown and through the Governor-General of Australia. He had a position. And at the low end of this scale would have been James Freeman, the clerk, who was meant to help Captain Hobson and who was assigned in Sydney, who'd only been in New Zealand 8 days. So he would have been regarded as quite low status. Very interesting. Because of the status relationship, there was some parallel between the Maori side, the English-British side and the Maori side. Captain Hobson dealing only with the chiefs. And of course Captain Hobson's instructions and that he passed on to Clendon, Williams and Busby came through Lord Normanby, who was his superior. So you can see the hierarchy was very functional. And so the treaty and hierarchy go together. In modern times people tend to forget this. But the treaty was worked out by very high status individuals, and was signed by high status individuals, the chiefs and also the people of New Zealand. Here we go, Clendon, Williams, Busby. They are high status individuals representing people of New Zealand, Captain Hobson representing the Queen. So Te Tiriti was in Maori. Again, high status given to Maori language by the Queen of England. That is a great honour. And Tirani was the name to which the chiefs agreed and signed. New Zealand, Tirani. Now the draft, which is of lesser status than Te Tiriti, the original draft in English was by Busby. And then we've heard about James Freeman, the clerk, who wrote his own report, his little report, his treaty you might say, which was also in English. But this is low status, high status. Low status here, the clerk. High status, the captain. Low status, the slave. High status chief, rangatira. Now let's look at today, and I'm just going to take a sample. Te Tiriti Māori. And the two of the members of parliament who are quite famous, Ngarewa-Packer and Debbie Ngarewa-Packer. These two folk who are in Te Tiriti Māori, you would expect would only use Te Tiriti and only refer to Ngutirani because they say that they respect their ancestors, the Tupuna. How is it that they only use the Freeman English report in all their dealings, not Te Tiriti? And why do they talk about Aotearoa and not Ngutirani? This is fascinating. How is it that they would, these people who claim to be the Maori party would elevate the clerk above his master, would elevate this little English report by Freeman above Te Tiriti, which was signed by the rangatira? Surely this means that their status is equal to Freeman. Accordingly, they must be down at that level. They must not have much mana at all. In fact, they're showing their true level. They have elevated, I'm saying, why do these fractional Maori who respect their ancestors elevate Freeman's English report over his superior, Captain Hobson, Te Tiriti? If you can think through that, you will be able to untangle this whole convoluted political mess, which is treatyism. I believe this point here is so fascinating because when you see, for example, on the television, I've seen Ngarewa-Packer being addressed on these matters, and instead of referring to Te Tiriti, he starts reciting Freeman. Incredible, isn't it? Incredible. And how was it that in 1975, Maori Minister Matthew Rata, who is bilingual and who could read both this and this and this, all these different versions, selected Freeman as his treaty and put it equivalent to Captain Hobson's Te Tiriti. He made the clerk's notes or clerk's little report equivalent to the captain. That is a massive insult, and I'm going to put that word here, insult, because he has reversed the proper order. He knows about hierarchical society. Matthew Rata knew exactly about hierarchical society, and apparently Ngarewa-Packer and Debbie Ngarewa-Packer, who talk about their Tupuna, their ancestors, they claim also to know about hierarchical society. I put it to you in this discussion that you and I possibly now know much more about the truth of hierarchical society and how it works. And we also are now learning about the insult and the hoodwink. The hoodwink, because that is probably the only way to answer that why. Why is it that the fractional Maori who respect their ancestors elevate Freeman over superior Captain Hobson is a hoodwink operation to trick us, to trick the public, to try and confuse us over the proper order of affairs. Because this Te Tiriti, there is no partnership between Crown and Maori. There is no lands and estates, forests and fisheries in here. There is no racket. There's no room for plunder, fraud or treason. This is what the chiefs signed because they wanted to unite with this modern world and to build a nation together, and they knew that hierarchy made sense. Who are these people, really? Who do they think they are? I'll leave that question with you because I think we've already found the answer. Thank you.